What we witnessed across 2 weeks in Melbourne was something the tennis world hadn't dared to believe. Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, two young, relentless forces rewriting the record books, pushing each other to the limit, and quietly forcing the greatest conversation in tennis. Could one of them be the GOAT? If Alcaraz wins 3 more slams before turning 25, that conversation gets very loud, very fast. But that question got me thinking, when did Roger Federer actually become the GOAT? Not when people started calling him that, not when the trophies piled up, but the specific moment, the single turning point when he stopped being one of the greats and became the standard, the name every future champion would forever be measured against. That question sent me deep into Federer's career, through the early rage, the heartbreaking losses, the years people quietly whispered that his best days were behind them. And where I landed was one cold January night in Melbourne, 2017. But to understand why that night mattered so much, you have to go back to the beginning, way back. The early years, the talent with a temper. Roger Federer was never supposed to be calm. If you only know the Federer of the last 15 years, the graceful, almost godlike figure gliding across the baseline, you'd be shocked by the teenager who showed up on the ATP Tour in the late 1990s. Young Roger was brilliant, undeniably. The Swiss Tennis Federation spotted him early, moved him to a national training center at 14, and within a few years, it was clear the talent was once in a generation. The footwork, the hand-eye coordination, the ability to improvise shots that simply didn't exist in any coaching manual. But the talent came wrapped in fire. On court, Federer was volatile. He smashed rackets. He berated himself loudly. He let frustration swallow him whole in the middle of critical points. Coaches warned him. Parents worried. The same intensity that made him electric also made him inconsistent. And in professional tennis, inconsistency is a death sentence. There was a very real possibility that Roger Federer, the man who would one day hold 20 Grand Slam titles, might flame out before he ever truly ignited. Then, in 2002, everything changed, but not in the way anyone would have hoped. The loss that changed everything. Peter Carter was the man who shaped Roger Federer. An Australian coach who had worked with Federer from his junior years, Carter understood the young Swiss better than almost anyone. He saw past the temper and into the talent underneath. He was the one who told Federer, quietly but firmly, that the racket smashing had to stop, that greatness required discipline, that the game was bigger than any single point. Federer listened. Slowly, painfully, he started to change. Then, in August 2002, Peter Carter died in a car accident while on safari in South Africa. He was 37 years old. Federer was 20. He was on the ATP Tour, hundreds of miles away when he got the news. By all accounts, he was absolutely devastated. Carter wasn't just a coach, he was a mentor, a guiding hand, a man who had invested years believing in a teenager that many had written off. The tennis world braced for the worst, that the grief would consume Federer, that the anger he had only just learned to control would come rushing back, that this would be the moment a great career quietly collapsed inward. Instead, something remarkable happened. Federer made a decision. He would play every match, win every title, chase every record for Peter. He carried Carter's memory with him onto every court he ever walked. That grief, rather than breaking him, forged him into something unshakable. The rise. First slam, then dominance. In 2003, a 21-year-old Federer walked onto center court in Wimbledon and proceeded to win 7 matches without dropping a single set, his first Grand Slam title. He cried. The whole world watched and understood. This was someone different. What followed was arguably the most dominant stretch in the history of professional tennis. Between 2004 and 2007, Federer won 11 Grand Slam titles. 11 in 4 years. He held the world #1 ranking for an almost incomprehensible 237 consecutive weeks. Pete Sampras, the man whose record of 14 Grand Slams was considered untouchable, watched the younger man make it look like a stepping stone. Pundits ran out of words. Opponents ran out of answers. People started using the word GOAT carefully, almost nervously, as though it was too soon to crown anyone. But tennis, like all great sports, has a way of humbling even the gods. The adversity. Nadal, the knee, and the silence. Rafael Nadal was the problem nobody had an answer to. Specifically, Nadal on clay was a force of nature that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of tennis. And in 2008, on the grass of Wimbledon, Federer's grass, Federer's kingdom, Nadal finally broke through. The 2008 Wimbledon final lasted 4 hours and 48 minutes. It went 5 sets. It was interrupted twice by rain. And when it was over, Federer sat in his chair, tears streaming silently down his face, the defeat hitting him not just as a loss, but as something deeper. The invincibility was gone. The aura had cracked. And then the body started failing him too. In 2008, Federer was diagnosed with mononucleosis, a viral illness that drained him physically for months. Then came the back problems. Then, in 2016, Federer suffered a torn meniscus in his knee, an injury that required surgery and forced him off the tour for 6 months. 6 months. In tennis terms, especially for a 35-year-old man, that is an eternity. There were quiet conversations in the tennis world, kind ones, respectful ones, but they all circled the same conclusion. Maybe that was it for Roger. Maybe the trophies and the records and the legacy were enough. Maybe a 35-year-old coming back from a knee surgery with Nadal and Djokovic in their absolute prime was simply asking too much. The 2017 Australian Open was Federer's first Grand Slam back. He hadn't won a major in 5 years. The betting odds weren't kind. The cautious optimism from his supporters felt, underneath it all, like a gentle preparation for disappointment. Nobody really believed he could win. Nobody except Federer. The comeback. 2 weeks in Melbourne. Let's pause for a second and really sit with what happened in those 2 weeks in January 2017. Federer, 35 years old, 6 months removed from knee surgery, comes to Melbourne not ranked in the top 5. He gets through the early rounds steadily, calmly, methodically. You could see something different about him. The urgency was gone, replaced by something quieter and more dangerous, pure clarity. Then he beats Kei Nishikori in the quarterfinals. He beats Stan Wawrinka in the semifinals in 5 sets. And then came the final, Rafael Nadal, his greatest rival, the man who had broken him at Wimbledon in 2008. The man who had more than anyone else made Federer feel mortal. The match went 5 sets, 3 hours and 37 minutes of the highest quality tennis 2 human beings have ever played. And across those 5 sets, you could see Federer doing something nobody expected. He wasn't surviving. He wasn't hanging on. He was playing the best tennis of his life. In the final set, serving for the championship at 5-3, Federer stood at the baseline and looked out at the Rod Lera Arena. 15,000 people on their feet. The weight of every year, every injury, every loss, every whisper that he was finished, all of it sitting on those next few points. He held serve. He won the championship, 6-4 in the 5th set. The human moment. What happened after the final point is what this video is really about. Federer dropped to his knees on the court and covered his face with his hands. Not the composed, graceful Federer the world was used to. This was something raw. He stayed there for a long moment, shaking, before getting up to find his family. His 4 children were in the stands. His wife Mirko, who had been his girlfriend and supporter since his junior days, was there. And in that embrace, you saw something that the trophies and the statistics could never fully capture. This wasn't just a tennis player winning a tournament. This was a man who had been told quietly and politely that his time had passed, and who had refused to accept it. A man who had carried the memory of a coach he lost at 20 through every match for 15 years. A man who had built his entire philosophy around the idea that how you handle defeat, how you handle silence, how you handle the years when nobody believes in you, that is what separates champions from legends. When a reporter asked him what this win meant compared to his others, Federer could barely speak. I told myself before the tournament, just give yourself a chance, just get to the 2nd week. And I did more than that. He laughed, and then he cried again. The closing. Why was this the moment? The years after Melbourne 2017 would add to the legend: another Wimbledon title in 2017, a 20th Grand Slam at the Australian Open in 2018, a farewell that moved an entire sport to tears in 2022. But for anyone who watched tennis, anyone who understood what that night in Melbourne truly meant, that was the moment. Before 2017, Federer was a legend. After 2017, he was something else entirely. He was proof that greatness isn't just about what you achieve at your peak, it's about who you are when the world has quietly moved on without you. When the young guns are faster, when the body is broken, when the 5 years without a slam feel like a verdict rather than a pause. Federer walked back onto that court and proved all of it wrong. That's why when people ask me when Roger Federer became the GOAT, my answer is simple: Melbourne, January 29th, 2017. 5 sets, 35 years old, 6 months from a surgeon's table. One night that answered every question anyone had ever dared to ask. That was the night Roger Federer didn't just win a tennis match. That was the night he became immortal.